Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
Oh, the crowd every week is gathering on audio platforms, on YouTube, on the CW to watch Inside the Arena. Episode number 12. We're back, Niko.
We are, and it feels good to be back. And, you know, the audience that's watching us, whether that's on the KOMO News YouTube page, whether that's on Seattle CW, they can't see that big crowd of people outside the studio. I mean, they're cheering us on. They're ready to go. Let's go.
Yeah, the crowd that we can see out the window somehow every week. A crowd that's going to be interested in hearing from Peter Tomozawa, who's the CEO of the Seattle World Cup Organizing Committee. He is on the show this week about what's happening with the planning for the event that's now less than 2 years away. I think people that listen to us every week, and thank you for everybody that does, knows that we had some special shows over the last couple of weeks. We're back. We're talking about what is actively happening every week in the world of sports and sports business. In particular, you were playing college football. I was traveling in Europe. How is that college football game?
I love that we're leading with that and not a trip to Germany. But it's good. I never thought recruiting imaginary 5-star kids in a video game would be so fun.
I can't wait to play it. But as you just mentioned, I was traveling. I was in Germany with family on a long planned family vacation, and we stopped in the NBA team store, the official NBA store in Berlin, the only one there in Germany, and just to see if there was some Sonics gear. And lo and behold, they've got multiple Sonics jerseys in the official NBA store. And I asked a clerk about the jerseys. There was Kemp, there was Peyton, there was some Ray Allen merchandise by Funko, by the way, out of Everett. And Detlef Schrempf, no surprise, the top-selling Sonics jersey in Germany, and he held it up for me. It was interesting to be there while the Olympics were going on, knowing the history of the 1936 Olympics. I went out to the Olympic Stadium as well. That was, if you ever get the chance to go to Berlin for a soccer game, boy, there's a lot of World War II history. It's really kind of interesting to walk around. Jesse Owens, huge homage to him. His name still is plastered around that stadium, and there's a Jesse Owens lounge. But it was interesting to be there, knowing the history with the 36 Olympics. Also, while the Olympics was going on, I don't know if you saw this. There's some interesting TV data about the Paris Olympics. I think by all accounts, it was a success.
Yeah.
And the Olympics are back. It was visually stunning in terms of a made-for-TV event. The ratings had been down across the board, across the country, as you know, the last couple of cycles. But Paris may have brought it back. But it's interesting when we talk about TV versus linear. We've talked about this on the show that Peacock was amazing. Absolutely amazing to watch. I think it bodes well actually for the Huskies and for people who are concerned about seeing college football this fall. That platform was so great for the Olympics, the ability to flip around easily, see multiple sports, but it didn't do as well in local TV markets. I think that's interesting.
I do too.
Richard Deitch, who I think is a great follow on Twitter. He's written about TV sports media for years with Sports Illustrated and The Athletic. He got the numbers on the TV markets for the Olympics. By all accounts, record amount of people watching, but there's a question of how much people were watching linear versus over-the-air television, or linear versus digital, I should say. Top metered markets, according to Richard Deitch: New Orleans.
Who would have
thought? West Palm Beach, Tulsa, Dayton, Minneapolis, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Fort Myers, Milwaukee. Denver rounds out the top 20. No Seattle in there, and no Portland, no Los Angeles, which is going to host the next Summer Olympics, no San Francisco, Chicago. DC. It really was interesting to see that the tech savvy markets, people who have the ability to pull up Peacock on their phone, were likely watching Peacock.
Yeah.
And I don't know how what that means in terms of going forward with linear versus digital, but I think it's a good sign for Peacock. I don't know if it's a great sign for those of us in local television.
I was just gonna say, well, yeah, especially, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You have certain markets where, listen, I mean, the irony of it is, by the time you add up all the streaming platforms you have, it probably is about the same price that you were paying before. But you are talking more about cities that are a little bit into, maybe a little more savvy, like you said, tech savvy, into streaming, and have Peacock, and not going to be up in arms that their favorite events. I found, like you did, that not only was the Peacock presentation pretty stunning, but it was highly convenient.
Yeah.
It was really, when you're talking about being all those time zones away, and we've seen that with other games over the years. And if you wanted to watch it live, you'd have to, get up at some crazy hour or whatever it was. With this, you could kind of just, if you try, you could do your best to avoid spoilers if you wanted to watch after, which is kind of impossible.
Yeah.
But, you could make that concerted effort to watch on your time. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought it was great. You know what? We should talk about what we like to do every week here. Talk about what's great, what's not so great in the world of sports. Something we call 4 quarters. We touch them all. All right, Nico.
All righty.
What's good this week in the world of sports and off the field, off the court, off the ice stuff?
Can I go on the field?
You can go on the field if you want.
I'm going to say, because we're on episode 12, I want to talk about the 12s.
Oh, yeah.
And, okay, here's the deal. You already know this. Preseason doesn't mean anything except for those players that are fighting for jobs, literally playing for their livelihood, which I've always found to be really a unique and dynamic part about the preseason. But ultimately, what I'm liking about this Seahawks preseason, here's the deal. This is that offseason. We know as little about how good that team is going to be as we maybe have since Pete Carroll took over, right? Because it's not just a first-time NFL head coach. It's a first-time offensive coordinator, and you've got all these new faces on defense. If I were to go on the air and give a number of projection, it would just be like throwing a dart. I can safely say 9 or 10 wins sounds pretty good, right? But we don't know. But what I do like, when I want to get back to my positive, is I'm starting to see an identity here. And this is not a knock on the previous staff, the previous regime. When I'm at these press conferences, just like I was the other day at VMAC, when you're at most of these days you're there, there's just something different about the way they're carrying themselves. Listen, they're always tight-knit at VMAC. It's always like a family atmosphere there. There's something different. And I want to refer to what Kayvon Wallace, new defensive back, came over from the Eagles, said. He said, quote, "We want to be the best defense in the world." In the world. He doubled down on it after. And I thought it was so cool. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But I love the attitude. I love that there's all these intangibles, all these things we don't know. But what we do know is that they're coming together. They all rave about Mike McDonald. They call him a scientist. They say he's kind of like a dad in there making dad jokes that are corny, but they love it.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, that's my positive. From the standpoint that you don't know what the results are going to be. I'll guess and say 10 wins. This could be a 7-win team. It could be a 12-win team. Who knows? But what I like is the foundation, not to be cliche about it, but the foundation, the camaraderie, everything that's we can see behind the scenes at that team headquarters in Renton.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to watch for a lot of reasons this year, because there is a change, and sometimes people are excited about change, and we will see, especially defensively. I think people are interested in seeing what Mike McDonald does. Hey, I'll go with the positive. The Seattle Kraken, cheers for Beniers. They locked him up for 7 years, and so you have a franchise cornerstone. It also looks like this may tap them out in terms of the salary cap. So by the time people hear this, maybe the team makeup is a little bit changed, because they might have to get rid of somebody because they have now locked up Matty Beniers. But that's a positive thing going in.
You're okay with the time commitment on that?
I think I'm okay with the time commitment. We'll see if we have to regret that in a couple of years. As he regressed, and he fully admits he regressed last year. But he is a young guy by all accounts. When you watch him play, he is different. He is different for this team. And in terms of going into training camp in September, you want to get this done. They got it done.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. He's so young.
Yeah,
like it's by the time he's 7 years is done, we're still talking late 20s.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm fine with it.
Okay, so what about the negative? What is there that's negative right now?
Do I have to say it?
That is going on in local sports and sports business? Gee, what could possibly be going wrong?
Okay, you already know what I'm going to say, but let me preface it by, I really love the Mariners organization and the people that you and I deal with on a daily basis. They do a great job and they're great people. I'm just at a loss for what on earth is going on with this team.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they've pushed every button they can push. I am somewhat concerned about the status of Scott Service after the season, because at the end of the day, if you're Jerry DiPoto, assuming Jerry survives it, which I think he will, what else can you do? I mean, you made moves at the deadline. Were they the hugest splashes in the world? Of course not. But were they big enough to make a difference? Yeah. And they did for a time. It just seems like this team always just comes back to this offensive lack of consistency, lack of production, whatever you want to call it. No matter what they do, they haven't had a win streak of more than 4 games all year. And now here we are when they've been in first place like the whole season. And now when it matters, they're, a few back, give or take. And it's just, it's frustrating. And I think the most frustrating part about it, Chris, is I don't know what the answer is. Like, okay, yes, the easy answer is score more runs. It's for everybody. Find more offensive consistency if you want to be more specific for this team. But how do you achieve that? I have no clue.
Well, I feel for the people that you and I have dealt with off the field.
Yeah,
that
they're
work
great.
So hard and have worked there for so many years, and to have a 10-game lead and watch it swing the other way at least 15 games and potentially not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
At a time when Root Sports is having its issues. The Portland Trailblazers have now officially stepped away from Root Sports. That means money out of the pocket of the Mariners. The Kraken have already done that. They're going to go over the air. The Blazers are going to go over the air in Portland. Root Sports is falling apart. The Mariners are falling apart at the worst possible time. I'm looking at Ken Rosenthal, well-respected baseball writer, who posted a story with The Athletic this week saying, listless in Seattle, the Mariners' flailing offense is wasting their dominant pitching staff. And, he gets into, I would encourage people to read it. He gets into the fact that it's tough to hit at T-Mobile Park.
Sure.
And there's a question about the weather. You've reported on that.
I have.
And what has happened in T-Mobile Park, especially what happens very early in the season. There are players now, and this doesn't help the franchise going forward. We think about Teoscar Hernandez down in being an all-star and what he's done with the Dodgers this year. He said he couldn't figure it out at T-Mobile Park. None of that helps going forward.
No, because now it's out there, and it's always been a thing here in Seattle, but now it's out there.
Yeah.
And guys that you may want to attract here next year. Little known fact, I have a meteorology degree.
I was trying to set you up for that.
I know. I was like, Chris kind of set up on a tee. Like, my 2-year-old can now hit the ball off the tee. Yeah. I will do the same.
Yeah.
And moist air is heavier than air without moisture in it. Yeah. It's pretty basic. And your point earlier in the season, we have colder weather. Even with the roof over it, that air still gets in. Colder air is heavier than warm air. Well, it seems backwards, right? Because when it's humid out, you feel like it's heavy on you, but colder air is heavier. So you kind of have the double whammy being that close to the water. I mean, it's moist anyway in Seattle, but even when it's not particularly rainy per se, it's still in the air, right?
Yeah.
And so there's some things there that I think, there's some truth to it. Never mind, there's you've heard guys mention maybe something with the batter's eye in center, all that stuff. It's a legitimate thing. And do I think that's the entire problem? Of course not. I mean, strikeout numbers are crazy, and that's user error, right?
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. But I think that, I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But again, it's such a conundrum, man. I can't tell you what's going on with this team. Talent's there. I mean, the pitching's been phenomenal, obviously.
And they've got a 2-year window with this pitching staff.
Yeah.
I think it's well documented, the contracts that are going to be due here in a couple of years. And a lot of those guys that are on small contracts right now are going to be eligible for arbitration. And I do really feel for the people that
hopefully
work
they can
off
do
the
something,
field.
Yeah.
On the another negative as we round the 4 corners, as we continue the baseball talk, I'll go to Seattle Center. It did come out this week very quietly that the Seattle Memorial Stadium project will not be done in 2026. That is something we've reported on a lot here. Big project with the Seattle School District, the City of Seattle, and the Oakview Group / the One Roof Foundation. The City of Seattle, in a press briefing about a lot of infrastructure topics and downtown activation, said that it'll be done in the fall of 2027. Didn't make a big deal about it, but the original plan was calling for it to be done as early as 2026 in time for the World Cup. So it appears in the project and the planning for this, they said the latest it would be done is 2027. Now we're officially hearing that from the City of Seattle. The school district has its issues, and that may be one of the reasons why that timeline is now being extended.
I was eager to see if any of the countries that are here would use it as a practice field or something. Obviously not now. But.
Well, we're going to talk about that with Peter Tomozawa in just
right.
a second. But first, we promised to do this every week, the Supersonic Minute.
Yeah.
It's been a quiet August in terms of the Supersonics, with the exception of me finding some jerseys in Berlin. But there was a report in the last week from Bill Simmons, longtime guy. Everybody knows Bill Simmons, the podcaster, the former ESPN anchor. He is saying that Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame is interested in buying the Celtics. It's been quickly disputed by several people who are like, hey, Amazon just invested in the naming rights in the arena here at Seattle Center. There's a potential expansion franchise coming up. Why would he do that at $6 billion when you can get something at $4 billion? But that happened this week. There's more legal maneuvering on the TV deal, which really seems like the wrinkle here before the official announcement of an expansion process, which we have covered extensively here over the last 3 months on Inside the Arena. So that legal maneuvering may slow some things up, but it really does feel like we are looking right now at October as a key month that potentially we could see this whole expansion process ramp up.
Isn't the NBA going to be here in October?
You know, it's funny you say that. There's an exhibition game.
Oh yeah,
in October. I wonder if that can somehow play a part in all of this.
I hope so.
You know, we were talking about the Olympics. Did that get you thinking at all about the World Cup here?
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I mean, it's just, we've had some great events in Seattle sports the last few years, All-Star Game, things of that sort, the Winter Classic. And it's just, whenever we get to those big, huge, I mean, they aren't as big as the World Cup.
Yeah.
But when we get to those big stages, we always seem to show out. I'm eager to see how that happens in 26.
Yeah, 13 matches between Vancouver and Seattle, and it's going to be a big, big deal. The city of Seattle, as a civic organization, the government, I should say, is talking about getting all this stuff done to be ready for the World Cup, meaning getting downtown reactivated, getting the waterfront up, getting the sound transit lines completed. So there's a lot of focus from the civic level, from the government level, about the World Cup. And I had a chance to talk with Peter Tomozawa, who has been the CEO of the organizing committee, just about where things stand less now than 2 years before the World Cup comes to Seattle. Here's part of that conversation. All right, Peter, what's new with planning for the World Cup in 2026?
Well, Chris, it's less than 2 years away. It's really exciting. I just got back from Paris and the Olympics, and I have to say, they did an amazing job of showcasing the city and its glory, its beauty. We'll never see Paris like that again, I think. They did such an amazing job. And I came back so fired up, really honestly, with how we will be able to showcase the best of Seattle to the world. And that's been our kind of theme all along, and it was just much more accentuated by what I saw with the Paris Olympics. It was fabulous.
You've been at this for more than a year now, a couple of years away. You've already had some sponsorships involved.
Yep.
What goes on in just
putting
on a event like this, but also you've got to build out the infrastructure. You've got to build up the sponsors to help pay for some of that infrastructure. I mean, where does that stand right now?
You know, we're hard at it. We're very, very busy working on the funding, which is what you're implying. And that's sort of the business side of things. We just had all the host cities, the U.S. host cities, get together in Los Angeles for a couple of days to compare and contrast notes and see where we're all at with progress and some of the things that we're going to do. And I came away really excited about collaborating across the United States with our other host cities. So all that work is going on. We have a very busy couple months coming up, and we'll be, we had that historic Puyallup Tribe of Indians deal that we did with them, and we're building the very first indigenous field pitch. I hope you come for the grand opening. That'll be in September. We're opening up a mini pitch with the Ray Foundation at the Puyallup Tribe of Indians Chief Leshai School. That's super exciting. We will be starting things like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Every city has to do a host city poster as a commemoration. We're going to go out for an open call for artists to come up with that Seattle iconic poster that will be with us forever. And so there'll be a little competition that'll be opening up with that. And look, the work that we have done has been very heavily centered around getting everything ready, as you suggested, the infrastructure, the security. We've been working on it since day one. Obviously, the COPA situation in Miami with fans rushing the gates and trying to get in. We're going to be more than prepared for anybody and everybody that comes here. And I saw some things that were of extreme interest to me in Paris as the way they secured their games. So I came back here all excited about that. And sure enough, good news is that Chief Diaz, former police chief John Diaz, has already thought of those things and has that all pretty much buttoned down.
So for the uneducated, can you explain there's probably people who are confused about what is the city of Seattle paying for, what is King County paying for versus what the organizing committee is putting together, and just what that public-private partnership looks like. Can you explain just the finances of how all of this works?
Yeah, look, at the end, it's not too different than hosting a large MLS Cup or CONCACAF Champions League. There's more days of it. There's not altogether that much different. One of the comparisons I always like to make is that we're going to have Taylor Swift, like-size crowds here. So we've had this all done before. These are discussions that we're currently having at a national, state, and local level on that. Suffice it to say, we're going to have massive financial impact, I think, hopefully. There's some economic analysis studies that are being done currently. Hope to have those sometime in the next 6 to 12 months, I guess, and see where all that falls. But, no question, at least from what I can see, there'll be 750,000 to 1 million extra visitors. And I say extra visitors to our area that will be spending lots of money, hopefully in all of our restaurants and our hotels, and all that rolls into higher taxes that the city and the state collects. We're going to have, it's going to be an amazing event for sure.
But the sponsors like the Puyallup Tribe of Indians help you with the building out the infrastructure to stage something like this. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. There's some elements, like we'll be putting together the fan festival, for example. We intend to take the event across the state, so there's 9 fan zones to build. Those are some of the harder costs of things that we have to do. There's some things that we need to do to help renovate some of the training facilities that we'll be using during the tournament, such as the University of Washington Husky Stadium, the soccer pitch there, as well as Seattle University. So there's some work that we need to do with that. And look, at the end of the day, we will definitely do whatever we can to make sure that this is a net benefit to economically. I just think it's an obvious net benefit, I think, to our community by having it here. But there's no question we have an eye towards what do we do to maximize the benefit of this event coming here.
Is it still the plan to be kind of the main central fan fest to be on the waterfront in 2026?
So we will announce formally where we plan to go with the fan festival. That's the big kind of event. We're analyzing 3 different locations right now. We haven't settled on a single one yet, but that's TBD. I'm hoping by the fall we'll be able to sit down and have a chat and tell you and unveil where we will be doing the fan festival. A couple of the 3 locations are on the waterfront. Another one is not. But I will say the following, which is if we don't have the fan festival on the waterfront, we will have an activation here. There'll be something that drives people to the waterfront.
So what kind of conversations do you have with the 2 federal governments, meaning Canada and the United States, knowing that Vancouver is also hosting a bunch of games, and this is going to be a major corridor with people going back and forth to try and see as many matches as possible? I mean, what do those conversations look like?
Oh, the conversations are monthly, regularly, with the team in Vancouver. We met earlier this spring in Toronto, and we had a very long conversation with our colleagues, particularly in Vancouver, but our colleagues in Canada. There's no doubt there's a lot of collaboration that can happen for the fan experience, getting back and forth. If you kind of look at the schedule, it looks pretty favorable to like spend a day here and go up there, there and vice versa. So, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities around that. We've been talking to both federal governments, not so much me personally, but we as a group, talking about visas and how to get back and forth between different countries. And U.S. government is doing a great job of getting ready. I don't know how much. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes, and I want to really thank, Maria Cantwell, Patty Murray. They've been leading the charge for us in the state of Washington and in Washington, and they've been doing a terrific job of making sure these things are all thought through, because that all these things matter, and with the crush of people that we sort of expect to come through there, that even accentuates making it easy to get across to and back from each other very closely. This is probably the best twinning, I would say, of any cities, right? Is that's Vancouver. Between the 2 of us, there's 13 games, right? And it should be really exciting. You're going to get a lot of opportunity. We're the only place where you can go watch U.S. men's national team outside of LA. There's only for guaranteed. So in the group stage, we have the men's national team coming here on their game 2. They're playing game 1 in LA. Game 3 is back in LA. So if you want to see the U.S. men's national team, you got to come here. Same in Canada. They're going to have the men's national, Canadian team playing up in Toronto and in Vancouver, right? So these are the places you're going to want to be.
So on this conversation aspect in terms of planning, I told you I was at a briefing involving city leaders who say, hey, they need to get a bunch of stuff done by 2026. They need to improve 3rd Avenue. They need to improve public safety. The waterfront's going to open by 2025. What do those conversations look like with the city about public safety and making sure the infrastructure exists to be ready for the crush of people that you said you're expecting in 2026?
It's been amazingly positive. Everyone's really excited about it. It gives us a real good target to shoot for, to be honest, with the city projects. We're seeing the beautification of our city unveil as we move to 2026. The murals that are happening out here are amazing. And I got to say that it's been a real pleasure to work with our city partners, our state partners. I'm not just saying that. It's just been really, really amazing. And the attention that Mayor Harrell has given to this project is fabulous. We have Deputy Mayor Greg Wong is sort of leading the charge. But, there's so many people behind the scenes working on all of this. All the deputy mayors actually are fabulously and really integrally involved. So that helps marshal the resources that are going to be necessary. But there's no question the focus is on. I think you intimated that recently that you were in a briefing and talking about downtown, and I had asked you, did they mention the World Cup? And they did, right? And so that happens everywhere we go. We're sitting here in Ivar's on the waterfront. Bob Donegan is a tremendous guy. He's been marshaling and making sure that we think about things all throughout the what to happen along here. And it's the whole city is coming together really nicely. We've been talking to all the neighborhoods since day one, and in and around the stadium, making sure that that they're ready and that they're going to be included in all the planning and that they're aware. And so that's really a big part of it, is making sure people are aware of what we're thinking about doing and all those.
Have you picked up the phone yet and said to Sound Transit or anybody on the Sound Transit board, like, you're going to be able to get all this done so we can move people around in 2026? Because there's a question on I-90 right now with so many people that will likely stay on the east side about whether they're going to be able to get across the lake to watch matches. There's a huge question there, as you know. I mean, what kind of pressure you put on Sound Transit?
I don't think I don't think we're putting pressure on anyone to deliver. I think what I would say is, and I think you give me too much credit on what we can be doing here, but the reality and honest answer is that everyone we talk to has been so engaged and so willing to everybody wants to do their part to make sure that we're ready in the best way possible. So it's almost, you don't need to be a cheerleader on this job. It's just you walk in and you say, here's where we're thinking. What are you guys thinking? How will this work? Well, the conversations have been nothing but super positive, I have to say.
When do you think you'll have concrete designs to release to the public about where the Fan Fest is, just how people are going to be able to get around, what things are going to look like on match day? What's that timeline look for you? Yeah, I mean, we've got it doesn't, when I look at it, I think I have no time left at all, but there's actually 2 years almost, a year and 9 months left. And we have all those things that you have just outlined: wayfinding, security, fan festival, locations, and kind of activations in around the city. So all those are coming together, and we have a definite, I would call, a communications plan, and we will let people know well in advance of what's happening. I don't think anybody, unless you don't watch any television, don't go on the internet, unless you're like living under a rock, you're not going to know. You're going to know. Yeah. And so we'll be out there loud. We have a great partnership with, I'm sorry, one of your competitors, and they're very active in helping us. I mean, they're the ones that own the rights to the World Cup, and so they've been great about offering up resources to make sure people know and people are aware. But then we have relationships with people like you. You're one of the major community pillar communicators out there. Oh, for goodness sakes. Oh, please, you are. And that's why we do these things, so that people and listeners can hear and be ready. Yeah. I'm going to end on a high note because you said such a nice thing there. I just don't know where to go. All right. Thank you, Peter. All right. So there you go. Peter Tomozawa, who is the CEO of the organizing committee. There's a lot going on. I think we're going to start to hear more announcements. Yeah. Probably here within the next year, kind of finalizing just how people are going to get around, where the watch parties are going to be, where the fan fests are going to be. But it's going to be exciting times here in the lead up before the summer of 2026. Boy, oh boy. And listen, not to put the whatever ahead of the course, I forget that saying. Yeah. But you're talking about if NBA expansion goes the way you and I expect and hope, you're talking about 2026 being a huge, perhaps historic. Well, it's already historic because the World Cup's here. But that and that could be maybe the year we see the Sonics out there. Can you imagine just June, July, August, September in this town with the World Cup and potentially an NBA team starting?
What if they were? Well, they wouldn't be starting that early. Never mind. I was like, what if the Sonics started and they went to the finals their first year and that built right into the World Cup? It's not going to happen, guys. Sorry.
Yeah,
but
that
no,
would be something too.
That would be. But to your point, yes, you got the World Cup and just that buzz, knowing that I would imagine those would be the months leading into the first games of the Sonics.
Speaking of buzz, see what I did there?
I did.
Final buzzer. Final thoughts.
I don't want to bring up the Mariners again, but I just want to say this is in a career that's almost 20 years of covering sports, in a lifetime of fandom for a number of teams. And I understand that the Mariners fans can be perhaps a little bit like, okay, we've been down this road before. I understand there's disappointment there in the past, but I have never been as perplexed by a team as I am by this 2024 Mariners. Why can't they hit? I don't know what it is. But the reality is, when it comes to our show, how we look, off the court, off the field, all that stuff, is that if they don't figure it out with that window that you mentioned, that pitching contracts like Logan Gilbert and other guys are coming up, if you don't figure it out this year, a few games out as we talk right now, you're probably talking about some kind of big move off the field that has to happen from the standpoint of, it's the same reason college programs fire a coach, because they want to get that juice going. And if you miss in this window, if you miss the playoffs again, the Mariners have to sell tickets. How do you rejuvenate that fan base? Is it Scott Service's fault? Is it Jerry DiPoto's fault? I don't think so. I think there's a little bit of blame probably everywhere. Just by nature, I don't think it's any one person's fault, but this could really lead to, again, another shift, whether that's coaching, whether that's front office, whether that's otherwise. Maybe they spend more to get more players in here. I don't know. But I think we're looking at a really profound and impactful offseason for the Mariners, especially if they don't make the playoffs again.
And they may have to retire Trident Sub.
They might have to.
Okay.
It wasn't good luck there.
No. The Trident being, there's questions about whether that's a lucky logo or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, final thoughts. Bill Fesh, who's just off camera. He's the wizard punching all the buttons. Thank you for everything.
We
here
love you, Bill.
Over the last 12 weeks, we've had Kenny Mayne, Brianna Treat from the Climate Pledge Arena talking about sustainability and the environment, Lenny Wilkins, the Sonics legend, the three-time Hall of Famer, UW Athletic Director Pat Chun, WSU Athletic Director Ann McCoy, former president of Fox Sports Networks, Bob Thompson. There's a lot of content for people to go through on all of these audio platforms, on YouTube. Hey, set your DVR for the CW. KOMO, we're popping up on KOMO too. There's a lot of content. And
we have something cool coming up behind the scenes with the Mariners next week.
Full circle. There you go. We'll see you next week. David, take it.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.